Now when it comes to Claressa Shields, the alleged mistress, the supposed side piece, and the woman accused of constantly leveraging a married man for clout, things are about to get messy in a way nobody saw coming. And if you're ready to unpack how this Aruba trip allegedly exposed every contradiction, every polished facade, and every Sunday school-style sermon she's ever delivered online, then buckle up, because this one is loaded. But before we dive deeper, hit that like button, smash subscribe, and push this video like it's the last thing you do today. Because the defenders are already warming up, the excuse makers are typing in all caps, and the engagement crowd that backs every questionable move is definitely not going to enjoy what's about to unfold. Let's be real, some uncomfortable truths are staring us right in the face. The pin-up persona, the Christian girl image, the boxing queen branding built on faith and confidence, it's all allegedly unraveling in real time during a supposed vacation in Aruba, where 2 queen beds and a married man reportedly set the stage for chaos. And yes, it only gets deeper from here. Allegedly, strictly for entertainment purposes, and with everything said to be opinion-based, Claressa Shields, the face of women's boxing, the self-proclaimed GOAT, and the woman known for mixing scripture with social media glam, decided to turn her vacation into a public spectacle. And she didn't do it alone. She was allegedly seen traveling with a man who is still legally married. Not an ex, not separated, but fully tied to Reminis Mackey, better known as Remy Ma. A man who, despite all the noise and speculation, has never officially closed that chapter. And while the internet tries to piece it together, Claressa Shields reportedly landed in Aruba and wasted no time flooding her Instagram stories with hotel footage. And that's where things start raising eyebrows. Because for a world-class athlete, a global champion, someone who constantly calls herself the greatest woman of all time, people expected luxury at a different level. Private villas, oceanfront suites, top-tier exclusivity. Instead, what surfaced was something far more modest. A standard hotel setup, 2 queen beds, and a friend in the room, either as company or as a buffer, depending on how you interpret it. And that single detail is what set social media on fire. Because critics argue this doesn't resemble a romantic escape or elite getaway. It looks more like controlled optics, carefully staged content, and possibly preemptive damage control ahead of real-life anniversaries and public scrutiny. And just when things seemed like they couldn't get more dramatic, they did. Claressa Shields began posting highly revealing content on Instagram, bikini clips and photos that shocked even her supporters. People who once associated her with discipline, structure, and faith began questioning the sudden shift in her public image. And according to online commentary, this transformation didn't appear out of nowhere. Some trace it back to the Alicia Baumgardner moment, where attention, comparisons, and praise allegedly triggered a shift that turned confidence into something far more provocative. From that point on, critics say the content became more revealing, more frequent, and more controversial, blurring the line between empowerment and performance. And when someone called her out for the contradiction between her Christian branding and her online behavior, her response only added fuel to the fire. Instead of stepping back, she brushed it off, dismissing critics for acting like pastors in her comment section. But the controversy didn't stop there. The content reportedly stayed up. No deletion, no apology, just silence on that front. Meanwhile, the man at the center of this situation allegedly arrived later in the trip, not alongside her. And when he did appear, observers noticed something strange. Distant body language, constant phone use, minimal interaction, and at one point, him reportedly disappearing entirely from the frame during a beach walk. Rather than a romantic moment, viewers saw disconnect. Still, the footage continued. Music was added, emotional, nostalgic tracks meant to frame the situation as love and connection. But critics argue the visuals told a completely different story. And that's where public opinion splits. Some see romance. Others see optics. Some see love. Others see performance. But almost everyone agrees on one thing. This situation is becoming harder to ignore by the day. At the center of the silence is Remy Ma, who has not responded publicly. No statements, no interviews, no reaction posts, just silence. And ironically, that silence is now louder than any caption or video circulating online. Because while one side is posting and performing for the timeline, The other is staying completely still, and that contrast is driving even more conversation. And as this story continues to develop, the biggest question remains unanswered. What exactly is really going on behind the scenes? Because whether this is love, optics, or something in between, one thing is clear: this narrative is far from over. Not in a luxury beachfront villa. Not in a presidential suite at a 5-star resort. Not in a private overwater bungalow with a butler named Sebastian who hands her cucumber water at sunrise. No, a holiday inn setup, 2 queen beds, and a friend in the room. Make it make sense, because that one detail alone is being treated like the smoking gun. 2 queen beds, a friend in the room, and no sign of papoose on day one. Do you see the picture forming here? Do you understand the optics being painted? This is being framed as anything but a romantic getaway. Not a couple's escape, not some dreamy vacation. According to critics, this is being spun as a damage control trip dressed up in vacation aesthetics and posted straight to the timeline like nobody would question it. The narrative being pushed is that this looks less like love and more like a carefully staged setup. And allegedly, this whole thing reads like a manufactured alibi. Something planned just in time, right before Remy's birthday comes into play. Because the theory being pushed online is simple: timing. And in this version of events, timing is everything. So the accusation becomes, if this was real, why does it look like coordination? Why the hotel choice? Why the setup? Why the buffer friend in the second bed? From there, the story escalates into full commentary mode. Critics are basically calling it a performance, something broadcasted for perception rather than intimacy. A situation designed for optics, not romance. A look-at-me moment rather than a we're together moment. And while that narrative is being built, the tone online turns sharper. People start labeling it, dissecting it, and reading meaning into every detail, from the room setup to the absence on day one. Then the conversation shifts again, and it gets even more intense. Because while all of this is unfolding in Aruba, attention also turns to her online presence. The sudden shift in posting style. The provocative content. The bikini clips that had even supporters doing double takes. Critics argue this didn't come out of nowhere. They trace it back to a turning point moment, when comparisons, attention, and public praise allegedly sparked a shift in how she presents herself online. And from there, the transformation is described as gradual but noticeable. More revealing content, more bold visuals, more controversy. And when someone questioned it, pointing out the contradiction between the image being projected and the Christian messaging she's used before, the response didn't calm things down. It escalated it. Instead of stepping back or addressing the criticism seriously, the reaction was dismissive. Basically telling people to stop acting like moral judges in her comments, brushing off concerns as overreactions. But that didn't end the conversation. It fueled it. Because now critics are pointing out the gap between messaging and behavior, between past branding and current content, and calling it inconsistency at best and contradiction at worst. And while all of that is being debated online, the core narrative being pushed remains the same. Everything happening is being read through the lens of optics, timing, and perception. And that's exactly why this story refuses to die down, because every new detail is being interpreted as part of a bigger pattern. The so-called scandal is still live. The audacity is still on display. And there she is, sitting in her 2-queen bed holiday inn fortress, acting like the internet is just going to scroll past and forget the very brand she built on principles now being questioned in real time. According to critics, this isn't confidence anymore, it's clout chasing on full blast. And the desperation. It's not quiet. It's not subtle. It's loud, it's chaotic, it's practically screaming through every post, every clip, every comment section reaction. But just when that storyline couldn't get more intense, we slide into Act 2 of this unfolding circus. Because now we get to the man at the center of it all, the so-called boyfriend, the alleged papoose situation, the married man tied to Reminisce Mackie, better known as Remy Ma, who still hasn't officially closed that chapter on paper. And according to the narrative being pushed online, he didn't even arrive with her. He showed up later. And for critics, that alone raises questions. Because if this was truly a deep, committed, undeniable situation, then why the separate arrivals? Why not move as one unit? Why not show up together, post together, exist together from the start? But that's not what happened. Instead, he arrives late, and when he finally appears on that beach walk, the cameras catch something that becomes the focal point of the entire debate. He's not engaged. He's not locked in. He's not playing the romantic lead. He's on his phone. Constantly. Detached. Distracted. Almost like he's mentally checked out of the entire moment. And then, at another point, he's just gone. Not lingering in the background, not staying in frame, just gone. Disappeared from the shot entirely. And meanwhile, the narrative centerpiece, Claressa, is still performing. Still smiling. Still walking like everything is perfectly aligned, as if the absence beside her is part of the plan. Then comes the soundtrack choice. A Mary J. Blige track layered over the footage, turning what critics are calling a chaotic, disconnected moment into something framed as empowerment or triumph. But to observers, the visuals and the vibe don't match the audio. And that mismatch is exactly what fuels the commentary. Because online, people are no longer just watching the situation, they're interpreting it. And the interpretation from critics is harsh. This isn't romance, this isn't love, and this definitely isn't some powerful fairytale connection. It's being described as optics. Performance. A situation built for the camera more than for real life. And then the conversation shifts into something deeper. Because for years, this dynamic has been public. Long-running. Repeated. And the question that keeps coming back, no matter how the narrative is spun, is simple. If this connection is real, why is nothing official? Why no paperwork? Why no legal closure? Why no clear transition? And according to critics, if this were truly the once-in-a-lifetime situation it's often portrayed as, those answers would already exist on paper. Instead, what exists is ambiguity. And in that ambiguity, different roles get assigned in the public narrative. The wife, the alleged partner, and the woman caught in between all of it. And while everyone else is talking, one person remains completely silent, Remy Ma. No statements. No interviews. No reaction posts. Just silence. And that silence has now become its own form of commentary, because in contrast to all the noise, it stands untouched. Meanwhile, every new clip, every new photo, every new hallway sighting only adds more fuel to the interpretation wars online. And that's why this story keeps circulating. Because every detail becomes another piece of evidence in a narrative that people can't seem to agree on, but also can't seem to ignore. Now I want everybody to sit with this for a minute. Think about the kind of pressure, attention, and online noise surrounding Claressa Shields right now. Think about what it looks like when every post, every outfit, every move gets dissected in real time by millions of people online. Think about how quickly perception can shift when someone's public image, branding, and personal life all start getting pulled into the same conversation. Because according to online commentary, what's unfolding in Aruba isn't just being viewed as a vacation. It's being interpreted as a moment full of optics, timing, and mixed messaging. From the hotel choice being debated, to the social media clips being analyzed frame by frame, everything is being read as part of a larger narrative. And in that narrative, people are questioning whether this is confidence, reinvention, or simply a change in public persona. And then the conversation shifts again. Because critics and supporters alike are now debating the evolution of her online content. The more revealing posts, the more provocative visuals, and the sudden shift in tone have all become part of the discussion. Some see it as empowerment and control over image. Others see inconsistency compared to earlier messaging tied to faith and discipline. And when those two interpretations clash, the reaction online becomes even louder. But the bigger question people are now asking is simple. Where does this trajectory lead next? Some speculate she may continue leaning into influencer-style content, while others believe she could pivot again into entertainment platforms or brand-driven opportunities. At this point, everything is being framed as a potential next chapter rather than a finished story. And what makes this situation even more talked about is the contrast in how different people in the story are responding publicly, or not responding at all. Because while the internet is reacting non-stop, some of the individuals involved have remained completely silent, which only adds more speculation and interpretation from the outside. And that contrast, between noise and silence, is what keeps the conversation alive. Now stepping back, one thing people are also reflecting on is the broader picture of celebrity culture itself. The way athletes, entertainers, and public figures can build powerful legacies in one space, while their personal lives become the main focus in another. And that's where Claressa Shields becomes a bigger discussion point, because her achievements in boxing are undeniable, but the current conversation online is being driven more by perception and personal narrative than sport. And as for Papoose, he remains part of the public discussion simply because of how people interpret his presence, absence, and silence in different moments. Online audiences continue to read meaning into every appearance, every delay, and every interaction. But at the end of the day, what's really happening here is a collision between private life and public interpretation. And that's why this story keeps growing, because everyone is watching, everyone is guessing, and nobody fully agrees on what it all really means yet. He's presenting like a walking contradiction, shifting through the scene in a way that instantly caught online attention. And according to viewers breaking down the footage, every appearance, every pause, every moment he's on camera is now being interpreted in multiple ways by the internet. And while that situation continues circulating online, the conversation suddenly expands beyond just one storyline. Because social media has now pulled in an entirely separate wave of celebrity discussions happening at the same time. Now the timeline has shifted toward a broader conversation involving reality TV circles and long-running interpersonal drama, with names like K. Michelle, Shomaya Morton, Portia Williams, and Candy Burruss entering the online discourse again as old clips and new commentary resurface. Because while one storyline is unfolding in Aruba, another narrative online is being framed around past accusations, shifting alliances, and long-debated reality TV tensions that fans are once again re-examining. And as always with social media, nothing stays isolated. One topic blends into another, and suddenly the entire conversation becomes about patterns. How narratives form, how they spread, and how quickly public perception shifts when more voices enter the discussion. Some online users argue that certain reality TV feuds and interview moments have repeatedly shown how quickly narratives can be shaped, reshaped, and reinterpreted once they hit the public space. Others believe it's simply the nature of entertainment culture, where personal lives, opinions, and media moments constantly overlap. And in the middle of all of this, the internet continues doing what it does best, analyzing, comparing, and debating every detail, often turning small moments into larger discussions about image, branding, and public perception. But the bigger takeaway people are now pointing out is how interconnected all these conversations feel online. Whether it's celebrity relationships, reality TV commentary, or influencer behavior, everything ends up being filtered through the same cycle: reaction, speculation, and audience interpretation. And that's exactly why these discussions don't slow down, because every new clip, every new comment, and every new reaction adds another layer to a story the internet never fully lets go of. So now the question becomes, where does all of this go from here? Because whether it's reality TV dynamics or social media relationship narratives, one thing is clear: online audiences are watching everything unfold in real time, and every new moment becomes part of a much larger conversation about fame, perception, and control of the narrative.